Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the 12th annual Embrace Aging. I'm Paula Morrison, and we have a presenter here on research and actions, virtual reality for older adults. So welcome, Jaisie. Like to, in, I'm excited to be here, learning more about the work you've been doing. We'd like to respectfully acknowledge that UBC and Interior Health, where I'm calling in from, is situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Silks Okanagan Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge that you're joining us today from many places, near and far, and please feel free to acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers or reflect on them of these lands. Welcome to the 12th annual Okanagan Embrace Aging Month, and thank you for joining us. This month is co-hosted by Beem Credit Union, Interior Health, and the Institute for Healthy Living and Chronic Disease Prevention at UBC Okanagan. Embrace Aging Month was launched 12 years ago, hard to believe, to celebrate and raise awareness about positive aging, and has once again organized a number of organizational opportunities and events during the month of March. The sessions are designed for everyone, young and old alike, and focus on a variety of topics related to healthy aging and ways to improve quality of life among seniors and the family caregivers. Our goal is to inspire everyone to enhance positive aging. Some housekeeping pieces: closed captioning. To turn closed captioning off, please select the hide caption button on the menu bar if you would like to close the captioning. And type questions or comments for the speakers into the chat box during the presentation, and we'll answer questions at the end of the presentation, and I'll help you with that. Feedback for this event: please complete the survey that will be emailed to you. Today's event is brought to you with support of Embrace Aging Month committee members. Today's session is Research in Action, Virtual Reality for Older Adults, and our speaker is Jaisie Sin, Associate Professor, School of Information Technology, Carleton University, Ottawa. Thank you, Jaisie. I'll hand the mic to you, the virtual mic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paula, for the wonderful introduction. So once again, I'm Jaisie Sin. Just a small correction: I'm not an associate professor. I don't have that promotion yet. I'm an assistant professor.
I'm thinking ahead.
Well, crossing fingers, I'll get there. But yeah, I'm from the School of Information Technology at Carleton University, which is a research and teaching university in Ottawa. I am currently I've started this year as a professor at Carleton University, but a lot of the research that I'm going to be talking about today took place in the Okanagan when I was associated with the University of British Columbia, Okanagan campus as a postdoctoral research fellow. We did a lot of work with virtual reality, working with older adults in various capacities, and I'm very excited to share with you, like maybe inspire you or just to like implement programs like these maybe, or just to see what virtual reality is about, and also to maybe like start broadening some perspectives as to what you can do with virtual reality. I Before I get too far deep, I do want to give some special thanks to the many people who came along this research journey, who advised me, and who supported me in all of this work. So special thanks to Dr. Jennifer Jacoby, Jen Boger, Dr. Khalid Hassan, Shatabdi Das, Duampo, Lakshay Dung, Lani Campbell, Amna Ullah, Miriam Ejana Lalusha, Watathan, Dr. Patricia Lasser, and some folks that some institutions that we worked with, and of course all the participants that I will be mentioning, like what they helped us learn about, and so on. I thank you as well for everybody who is here today to like learn about VR. I'm very excited to share what we've discovered in our journey. And also to whoever might be watching this in the future. So welcome to this um session. So, before I get too far in, maybe just starting off with a primer as to what the technology is about. I will be using this term a lot. I just want to make sure like everybody knows what it is because so in a way, this technology is still very new, like not just for older adults, but for a lot of people in the world. Like in reality, we don't really know fully yet what we can do. Like we're very familiar with computers, smartphones, even like tablets or even smartwatches like Fitbits and so on. But like this is one that not a lot of people know what it is about, what can be for, or a lot of people haven't even played around with this technology. Maybe some of you have chatted with us last year. Like last year for Embrace Aging, we had an event where we had I think it was a 2 or 3 hour session where we brought these headsets in and we uh, let people play around and we play through um, and use some of the applications that I will show on the next slide. Uh, but otherwise, like this technology can be expensive. It has uh, gotten less expensive over the years, and we have some commercially available options that if you went to Best Buy or Walmart or like you went on Amazon to order it, like it's available. So that hits this technology that I'm talking about can be seen in this top left image. So this is MetaQuest uh whoops, the MetaQuest 3. It retails for about 680 Canadian dollars. And you can like purchase it from Best Buy. If you went to your nearest Best Buy, you ask for this headset, you can buy it. What this does is you have this headset that you put on over your eyes. You can keep your glasses on, and so on. And then when you put it on, you're transported, or you can see through. It's kind of like wearing binoculars. You have two lenses, and then you see this virtual environment. When you go and turn your head around, you can see these images. Um, move along with your head. So you're kind of in you're in this 3D virtual space. These headsets, you can use them with just the headset, or you can have these controllers. And these controllers that you hold in your hands, they kind of model the buttons are placed where your fingers would be to match your hand positions. And then now you that means you can like move your hands around, you can point at things in a virtual space. You can use the buttons to kind of manipulate uh 3D objects in a virtual in that virtual environment. If there are characters within that virtual environment, you can there is a microphone and you can go talk to them, and then sometimes if they're programmed to interact with you, you have opportunities for that. But otherwise, like, so these are digitally generated images in a 3D environment. Sometimes the entire environment is 3D generated. Sometimes the headsets can have cameras on one side where they'll take in your real environment. So you can be in your room, and then there are just virtual elements that are shown in the room. So you might have a digital puppy next to you, and you can go pet it. But it's all taking place in your own room. You have natural controls again with the controllers, with your voice, with your just like sight. So it's very different from when you're using a computer and you have a mouse and keyboard, or when you have a tablet and you're pressing things on a screen. So it's in a way it's a more natural interaction. And then there's many different things you can uh, do with this VR system. So you might, if you have, um, if you've been in a place where you've talked to kids about virtual reality, they might be very excited about the games and the movies. There are other applications for this technology. So productivity, like you doing, making slides, like what I'm presenting can take place in virtual reality. Writing, word processing or like writing text can take place in there too. There are a lot of people looking at using training, so like training surgeons on how to do surgery in VR, or teaching electricians how to wire things without actually exposing them to that dangerous electrical equipment right away. People can also do meetings in these spaces, and that way, like just like how we're doing a webinar here, instead of doing it through the screen right now, we can all be in a virtual classroom and like have a or a lecture hall or something, and like have meetings while being sat down in a virtual environment. All while physically you're in like the comfort of your own home or your office or wherever you want to be. There is internet connectivity that's uh available to you so that you can go interact with other people remotely through those meetings and so on. Now, over the course of our experiences introducing virtual reality to older adults, there we've discovered certain applications that seem pretty applicable to people, or like that are pretty exciting. And then I just wanted to like showcase like to you like what some of these are. There are many more different applications. We didn't there are many that we didn't get around to exploring, or there are many others that for like the power users of VR, they might find particularly helpful. These ones are particularly behave novice friendly, or like beginner friendly. So one top one is what's called Wander. So this one is Google Maps or Google Street View. You're transported to uh, whatever location you want to specify. And then you can go like look around in your space. So this image here, somebody wants to go to 25th Avenue in like from 2011 to 2014. It'll plop them down in this environment and they can see their house. This is all from based on Google Maps and images. And like people love like seeing this and like showing other people what their hometowns look like. Sometimes people want to go traveling and they want to like get a head they want to or they would have wanted to go traveling, but maybe it's expensive or something, but they want to check out what it looks like, so they can use Wander, the Wander application to check out what that location looks like without paying exorbitant amount of money. But otherwise, they still get that immersive experience. We have Art Plunge, which is an exploratory app, exploration, create. It's an exploration of creative endeavor. So here it's they want to ask the question of what if like you're looking at the Mona Lisa is in a frame. What if you can jump into the Mona Lisa? So introducing like Art Plunge, where you can jump in, you can be in this 3D space along with the Mona Lisa here that's pictured. And then you can look around to see what the room looks like when she's sitting there and looking back at you. The top right, we have Cubism. So this is for all the uh, puzzle solver, brain teaser folks out there. This cubism, the idea is you take these virtual shapes, and then you can put them into this gray, try to fit all of them into this gray box, or like this other interesting gray shape. Cubism at first, this was one of the applications where at first it was all virtual. And then they included an update where you can solve puzzles in your own room and you can still see everybody else and so on. There is you can collaborate with other people, like that way one person is solving and the other person can help you out while you're solving the puzzle, and you can solve it together. Alcove is one, they have many different functions. One of them is to be able to meet with other people. So with this application, they're here in the image, there's like two people and they can chat with each other as if they're in a virtual living room. They can watch movies together. There is also a feature here to go and look at immersive like 360-degree video of different locations such as Venice, or like swimming with dolphins and so on. Epic roller coasters is for those who are into very exciting experiences. So this one is all about sitting down in a roller coaster seat, going through like roller coasters through like space, through jungles, and many more different like Treasure Island and so on. So it's very exciting. First Encounters is another application where you're in your living room. Aliens are coming and invading your living room, and you have to use your controllers to, which are like little guns to like shoot them and get them out of your house. Uh, so these are all applications that, in our experience, when we were uh showing older adults around, like we showed these ones, and we showed like at least like 2 or 3 times the amount of applications that are listed here. But these are the standout ones that people have a lot of fun with. So if you ever want to do VR, like maybe these are ones that you can go check out. Now to tie this into what I wanted to talk to you about. So we first introduced all of those applications to a group of older adults in what we call like these virtual reality fairs. So within like these first 4 weeks, we wanted to like go learn, like figure out what types of games they're into, like, and then like build some rapport with some uh folks at some collaborating institutions that we were interested in working with. And then afterward, we jumped into our main research. So we had this particular goal. We want to understand what happens, like all of these technologies that we're looking at. Like they're very fun and cool, but they're not necessarily made for older adults. They're the people who made the moreover, they a lot of these developers were not older people as well. So a lot of people who make these games and applications, they're younger. So then that means that they might not necessarily uh, be making games that cater towards uh, not just like the needs of older adults, but also like what they actually want out of this technology. So we had this question. So like what happens if we put older adults into the developer and designer seat? Like what happens if we say, okay, older adults, we have some university students who can go develop whatever you wish. And we have this long-term collaboration. Like, what types of virtual reality applications do you want to develop? So, putting that into a nutshell, is like what happens if older adults and university students collaborate long-term to develop virtual reality applications together? So, we everybody cooperated for 10 weeks, or everybody collaborated for 10 weeks for the duration of the study. Now, what I'm talking about today will be focused on the coming together, forming groups, ideating some kind of application, and then creating prototypes. I do want to emphasize that the same group of people now is continuing working and they're evaluating those applications, running testing, and so on. So this is just a snapshot of what's going on. That we have a lot to kind of unpack here to maybe uh, to inspire like other people who might want to do something like this. But I do want to emphasize like that in our minds, this was a very successful collaboration because it is still ongoing and everybody's still very interested. So when we went in, we didn't. I guess part of it is like this was a bit of a risky situation. We weren't sure if this would work, and that was also part of the fun and the challenge. Like we wanted to see, okay, how do we make this work? Will it work? And what are the things that would factor into making this work? So we had a couple like objectives and expected benefits of doing this like 10-15 week endeavor. Like it is a bit of it does involve a lot of uh time investment. So um we were expecting like certain things. So some of the things we were expecting, we were hoping one of our goals was to position older adults as leaders in technology development, rather than just being recipients, passive participants, or just like being consulted, like some at some certain checkpoints as like for interviews or so on. So a lot of technology development, even if they have older adults involved, there are usually designers or developers making that application, and then they go to the older adults and say like, okay, here, what do you think? Like there's no real meaningful involvement, or I mean it's meaningful in some way, but it's a little bit limited. So we're saying, okay, let's put older adults in the seat of control and then see what they want. Secondly, we want to find out what did older adults really want out of this technology. Those who are familiar with VR development, they will notice that a lot of the times when people have some kind of idea about technologies for older adults, it usually comes from like the researcher, the designer, the developer. We don't necessarily ask older adults, okay, like you have free reign, tell us what you want us to make or explore. So we want to find out, okay, if we give older adults this agency, what do they want? We don't have any goals. We just want, the only restriction we have is we want to develop something with virtual reality. And then lastly, number three, we want to find new ways to design, develop, and evaluate novel technologies. Currently in the tech industry, they have very fixed processes for how to go about designing and developing. They have like specific like what like design thinking, user experience processes, and so on. They have like I'm just going to throw out a bunch of terms for anyone who will be familiar, like personas, journey mapping, and so on. So, but like these are very strict, very rigorous processes. So we want to know like, okay, does this actually fit like this model? Which of those processes do actually work, and so on. So these were some things that we were wondering about. Now, who actually joined in on our endeavor? So we had six older adults. Two of them were male and four of them were female. They were all in the oldest old category of older adults, which we were very happy about because this was also the group of people who are often underrepresented in technology research and development. These so 80 to 90 years old. The mean age was 87.2 uh, years of age. All of them were independently living in a retirement home. All of the participants that we had participated across the entire duration, which was very important to us. That way, we had some consistency between each of the sessions and we can go revisit. And it's not an entirely new group of people every single time. All the older adult participants received $95 for their involvement in the study. So after their design sessions were not we didn't, this honorarium was not for them participating, but it was for uh, us asking them after every collaboration session, like interviewing them on their experiences so that we can collect the data and talk to you about it with you guys today. And Honestly, like none of them had prior experience with virtual reality. All of them identified as white and they lived in an urban environment. We had a group of students that were supporting the older adults with the VR development. So we had 12 students. Six of them were male, six of them were female. The median age was 22.1, so a very stark difference compared to the median age for the older adults. These students were third and fourth year undergraduate students and first year graduate students. They came from health and exercise science and computer science. So we had a group of people who are very familiar with health outcomes, exercise, older adults. And then we had a group of people who had the technical background to go and implement those applications. Uh, there was a range even within the students as to their familiar with virtual reality. So all of the computer science students were pretty familiar with virtual reality. They had at least 1 year of experience either developing or playing around with it. Whereas like the health and exercise science students, three of them had 1 year of virtual reality experience, and the rest had no prior experience. So this was very interesting because we would assume that young people all have maybe we would assume that all young people have experience with VR, but that was not the case. And actually, that this was something that it meant that the students and the older adults could learn together how about virtual reality and then what they could do with it. It also like kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. Here is what happened. So what we ended up with was the those groups they split into two groups and they created two different prototypes. And I'll walk through in a moment what those prototypes were. We have some photos of like what these collaborations look like. So here we have some students in image C. We have some students sharing what virtual like I think they were going through similar process to what I started with in this presentation, which was just going through what virtual reality is all about and so on, and like having some experience like trying out the virtual reality headsets. And then in image D, the students had at this point, students had built, I think this was the figure skating group, so like the image B group. And at that point, they had created an application and then they're asking the older adults to go and like try it out and then tell them what did they want the students were asking the older adults, okay, what do you want us to change next? Like, what do you want us to put in next? Or like they would go, okay, last week you mentioned this. Do you still want like you mentioned XYZ? Do you still want XYZ in there? Uh, from a from a virtual development prototyping point of view, this was developed in over the course of 10 weeks. We had a working prototype and everything. So like in well, many accounts, this was pretty successful in terms of prototyping, which was one of the things that I do want to point out. Like we had this close collaboration and it was successful. It's like we built an application just like what would happen if you only had designers and developers developing, but now you have older adults actually telling you what to do, what they want. So the first application that was created was figure skating. So then that group, they had older adults who never figure skated in their life, but they watched the Olympics and so on, and it looks like pretty fun. So they were thinking about, okay, what would that look like if we could try experiencing that ourselves? What they implemented was a skating rink. I think in this image they had an arena, and then later on they decided to move it into an open space with a cabin and like basically like up in the mountains sort of thing. They had a little figure that could like skate around. They just the the team decided to use the body as the means to move around the figure skater. So like by tilting where you are, you can control where the figure skater is going. And then they also want to use hand gestures, so like different hand gestures. I think it was like two hands for a double axle and or like th two fingers for a double axle like this, and then three fingers like that uh to do a triple axle. And then they have some other movements for different figure skating poses or uh maneuvers. The second group, they took it to uh they took it in another direction. So with this group, they were very interested in history and adventure and travel. So then they converged on this idea of exploring this temple called Abu Simbel in Egypt. So this temple has an interesting history. It used to be located on the Nile River, and the Nile River would flood intermittently. So I think they took, in reality, the Egyptians, they took this temple, they airlifted it somewhere in a higher location. So then nowadays, like visitors can still come and go and like take a look at all the paintings on the walls and so on. So some unique features about this temple: it is big. There's like corridors and so on. You can move in and out. There are paintings on the ceiling, which you can see in image B. There are paintings on the ceiling. There are different materials that it's made out of. There's like a history and there's the stories that are told by these paintings. So then they want the group here, they were interested in traveling, but then because of various reasons they probably would not be coming to this location anytime soon. But they want to like explore like what that they want to like create an application to let people explore what this place would look like and to kind of flesh it out. So they had a narrator, so someone who uh is local. Their idea was to have someone that's local to that environment, narrating or speaking to you. You would go through various different points in the temple. So, like for example, going to where image B is, you would look up at the ceiling and go like, "Oh, what is that?" And then the voice would tell you, "Oh, that is the paint. That is a painting." Like they'll tell you about the materials and so on, and then they'll say, "Okay, like now that." When you're done looking at the temple, you can go over down this corridor if you want, and I can tell you about such and such. So it's basically a guided tour, um, but in the comfort of wherever you happen to be. And then the group explored like different ways to get around the temple. I think they ultimately decided that having for the virtual the VR developers out there, the regular like point and click at C like that was preferred over taking steps in a particular direction or using a controller to uh slowly migrate progressively migrate over. They implemented talking icons instead of having uh directly speak to you when you get to a location, although towards the end they were still trying to decide on what worked best, but this was what they settled on. D was just there's an image and then you point at the icon and then it speaks something to you. Now, like zooming back out a little bit, though I just covered like okay, what was created and like what are like some design functionality. Uh Now, but we going back to what kind of initiated all of this to begin with, we were interested as researchers in okay, is this feasible? Is this acceptable? What is the effectiveness? So what are the outcomes of this kind of endeavor? When we looked across all of the interviews and then we summarized, okay, like these were the main points that uh, we noticed. So different outcomes. We found that this collaboration was effective for bridging the digital divide, fostering intergenerational relationships. It had a structure and flexibility that was workable, or it supported VR development in a way that had the structure and flexibility baked in to support the older adults. And it also allowed technology development, which, like as I mentioned before, was pretty much what you would expect from technology development, but with older adults. So it's basically saying when you incorporate older adults, it still works. Okay, so like digging a little bit deeper, so bridging digital divide, older adults were able to learn about virtual reality. The developers were able to quickly identify barriers for older adults learning and using virtual reality. So these are things that a lot of research or a lot of people do not encounter just by uh, looking at research. So things like have neck the heads like the specific limitations from arthritis and being able to turn the head to like look at virtual reality environments and like trying to figure out ways to go and um, overcome those barriers. So these were things that they could learn on the spot while they were creating the virtual reality systems instead of releasing the systems later and finding out about it. This approach supported what older adults want from VR design. So like which particular movement mechanic would work best. It supported what the older adults wanted from virtual reality in terms of content and what they want to develop. And it also increased like the perceived value of VR about the project in general. It fostered intergenerational relationships between younger and older people. So we had a lot of towards the end when we asked them, okay, what did they think about the collaboration? We had a lot of comments from both sides saying, oh, I did not expect for this to work so well. Like, oh, I did not expect to have so much fun working with the kids at, on VR. I did not expect that this VR stuff could work. I did not expect to get along so well and to like make something that's so cool. On the other side, it's like I did not expect older adults to understand virtual reality. I did not expect us to be able to successfully create an application and so on. And then moreover, there's just like soft skills training. So a lot of uh the students here, if not for this collaboration, they could have graduated without engaging with older adults, without creating applications with them. So this was something that uh this type of opportunity granted them. There was structure and flexibility that was baked into the process. The group could come up with effective processes together. Like they could decide, okay, we are going to meet every week, or they can decide to meet every other week, and then they had flexibility to go do that. They could figure out what were the optimal platforms for communication, whether that was by text or by email. They could figure out what their schedule should look like, and then also like decide on their own like what roles or contributions they want to make. So for example, the computer science students took on the role of developers on their own. The other students took on like communicating and like doing research on what are figure skating um maneuvers that can be incorporated. And then the older adults, like, they decided amongst themselves like uh who would comment on like various different aspects of the application and so on. I want to emphasize this point to also say that a lot of these process determinations were determined by the older adults and the students themselves without the researchers like me and the other folks that I named earlier. We were there, but we were more of secondary support, and we weren't the ones that were dictating how this collaboration should run and how they what types of VR applications they would create. So that was something that they could make happen on their own. And then lastly, we found that this process was effective for developing the technology, developing VR technology. Uh, New and desired like design new novel design ideas were generated. They created some applications that I'm pretty sure nobody would have thought of. They were successful in creating a minimal viable product or a prototype that can be tested later on for uh, various purpose per through various means, and they were able to overcome difficulties coming to settling on like design decisions, and then they were also able to um, tell us what else they needed for um, to incorporate everybody in the collaboration. I want to also wrap up with some lessons learned for anybody who wants to implement this. We've learned a lot about how to make sure that everybody feels a sense of ownership and agency in this process. That was something that was very important to us, especially for both the older adults and the students. We didn't want them to feel like the researchers were we were the people who got funding for the project to like get, and we coordinated the organization, but we wanted them to know that they had the lead in this collaboration, and then we were there to support them. And our only requirement was that they made something in VR. Like we didn't impose our own will for what VR should do. We didn't have any other outcomes saying like we want you to have make a health application. We didn't say we want you to make an exercise application and so on, which is what a lot of other researchers have done. So we just said, okay, you guys have free reign. And when we looked in our interviews, we learned some things about like what goes into a successful collaboration. So for anybody who wants to implement these might be things to keep in mind to try to emphasize with your group of collaborators. So maintaining relationships between these takeaways, I'm just going to name them first and go into the details. So number one was keeping in mind the relationships, like the personal rapport and so on between the designers and the older adults, keeping in mind how their interactions and what everybody is contributing. Number three, keeping in mind the session logistics. And number four, keeping in mind the resources you should supply the team to help them have a successful collaboration. So number one, relationship between designers and developers. We should emphasize that designers especially should convey respect, friendliness, sense of valuing older adults' opinions, providing them some materials as to like how to do this as well, telling them what are some key points about maintaining sensitivity in communication styles, like how people speak because of differences in generation, and then also emphasizing to them that at the ultimate date, like we know that we told you to create an application, but ultimately we want you guys to get along, build some rapport with each other, treat each other as humans, start with that first, get to know each other and understand like what each other is trying to say. So then that way when you make the product, it's something that everybody is happy with. Number two, how the interactions and contributions should go. The older adults in in our experience, they said that they really liked that the students were very interactive and stimulating. We also noticed from our end that the students were being very invested and very engaging for the older adults. So there was like energy and effort that was put in. So finding the right type of people is really important. Fostering, helping to foster older adults' familiarity with the technology is very important. That way they know the limitations and they also know what is capable so that that way when they're creating technologies or like experimenting with VR, they can give very interesting applications because they know what is possible and that they're familiar with it. We should try to support older adults' meaningful involvement and contributions. From the students, they were learning how to do design. So from the researchers and us as teachers, like we were telling them, okay, let's don't make any, like we kept constantly reminding them, don't make any design decisions without asking the older adults first. Kind of treat them maybe as their boss and like make sure you run all decisions by them first and make sure the whole team like kind of agrees and so on. When we look at session logistics, being organized and coordinated, scheduling, okay, every Wednesday morning we will go and like meet together, handling all of that, making sure everybody can be there, being mindful of how many people are in each group, and also like how many older adults to uh, designers and developers. So I think our happy number was maybe having some odd number of people, odd number of older adults. That way, if there are any If one person wants one thing and another person wants another thing, there's a tiebreaker in between. But also making sure that there's enough students. Like I think they want the suggestion was a 2-to-1 ratio, so having two students per um older adult that's in the team, and also making sure that there's enough people who have developer skills. So like these, like all the group ratio uh considerations. There was also a point about making sure that everybody can be there consistently. That way you have continuity in the team. Third point is just ensuring that there's enough headsets available, or whatever technology that you're creating with. Fourth point here, being mindful of the schedule, but also the location. You'll see from the images on the right that the students went to where the older adults were located. So this was in the community area of the retirement home. So this is where every week like people would play bridge, or like have bingo, or have sing-alongs and so on. We were just part of that regular schedule programming. So then that way we fit into their schedule really nicely. And also the older adults didn't have to have the headache of trying to go someplace else. And then lastly, just having resources to support successful collaboration. In our case, we had students, so we had, uh, in order for this to manifest, we had professors and we had support staff to go and teach the students about virtual reality, about older adults, about what design processes can go in and that they can consider. So we had a lot of this like knowledge support that was going in. We also had like scheduling support. And then like the last point there is about maybe baking in some options for reflection so that we can encourage everybody in the group, both older adults and younger adults, to like reflect on what is working well and what isn't working well. An example that we had of this happening was in terms of report building. The older adults mentioned that they didn't necessarily remember the students' names, even though like it was very early on. So one of the things that the support, like the professors and the staff, what we did was we created some name tags for everybody to wear. So the older adults, they had name tags already because they're when they mix and mingle, like the name tags have been helpful to them. So we made some name tags for the students to wear as well, and that was very useful for now people can call each other by name, and they did learn their names pretty effectively from that. So all this rambling aside, some key takeaways. I just want to encourage you guys, like VR development with older adults is feasible. If you ever had doubts about like what happens if you incorporate older adults throughout the entire process, I want to assure you that it is feasible, it is effective, you can make your prototypes, and it works just fine. There are certain considerations that can be made to support successful collaboration. It's not too onerous, it's all on the last slide. I just covered them. And then aside from successfully creating our VR prototypes, which is very technically oriented, a lot of the benefits from this process is very socially oriented as well. We can help bridge the digital divide, foster intergenerational relationships, and then lastly, that the way that we had this collaboration work was by talking with a retirement home and becoming part of their regular schedule programming. So every week they would have a designated time to play bridge, to play Wii bowling, to play like to do exercise together or so on. So we were just another slot in that. That way it fits very nicely in like coming together every week to go meet and like to do these like fun VR activities. It's just another arts and crafts project, but like with virtual reality heads. So that's kind of effective way to go about this. There might be other ways, but this has been something that worked really well for us. Okay, so that's about it for my spiel. Thank you so much for listening. Uh, and I hope you had some good things to take away from this. Thank you again so much to all my collaborators at the UBC Okanagan campus. I had a lot of fun, and I hope uh, everybody can learn a lot from this and be very inspired. So thank you.
Thank you, JC. That is inspiring. I really appreciated the presentation. It gave me a lot to think about. I appreciated some of the soft skills that both the intergenerations were working with together. That's super interesting and inspiring. I'm not I'm personally not surprised, but I gravitate towards older adults and work and being in those spaces, and also get to be with young people. So I'm fortunate that way. But I just see there's so much we can learn from each other. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anybody would like to have an opportunity to ask any questions, this is an opportunity now. So if you want to type your questions into the chat, that would be great. And we have a few minutes to respond if you have anything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's a chance for me to catch my breath and have a sip of water.
Right? Yeah, you did well. I wonder how often you met.
How often? So for this, it was roughly once a week.
Okay,
The students actually they said that towards the beginning, if they met more often, that would have they might have preferred that. So maybe twice a week while they're just generating ideas. And
nice.
maybe towards the end, like meeting once every 2 weeks would be okay because they needed more time to implement the ideas and to create the virtual reality applications before getting more feedback and figuring out next
And
steps.
getting into it to actually using it.
Yeah. So like
Neat.
we met once a week, but maybe a little bit of a modified schedule if we were ever to do this again.
Nice. So there's a comment here. Great talk. I'd like to hear your perspective on how do you see VR integrating into their lives in the future?
I thank you for the question. So I think there's a lot to be explored. Currently, we've looked at not me personally, but like there's a lot of researchers who have looked at health applications, using this to help with uh alleviating dementia or like looking at um exercise applications and so on. So a lot of it is health-based. I think there's a lot to explore in terms of the social applications. So a lot of our research in the lab that I was working with is now looking at using VR to connect people together. We have a publication that is coming through this April where we're going to be discussing that. I had an image of that here somewhere. So
It's exciting.
yeah, so this one is this I'm very proud of the team that put this together. I'm very happy that I was part of this project. So this was published at or this will be published at one of the top venues in our field of human computer interaction. It's the top conference. It's like the big big dog journal conference venue, and here we're talking about having two older adults together and then playing um games together and just interacting. And we're like looking at ways to help support this communication. So using virtual reality to let people engage um, remotely more. Uh, so some of it is that, some of it can be without a headset as well. Those would be interesting applications, but like social applications for sure. Letting people tell stories together is something else that I think would be very promising. So
I
thank
like
you for
that. Yeah, I think that social connection. We do have about 20 VR um, systems in care homes in interior health. And I think that's the power. I think you get to see each other a little differently when you see the VR, and there's joy and dialogue. It's super interesting. Let's see.
yeah.
This is a question here, which I think I can answer part of it. Someone missed part of it. Yes, there is a recording and there's a YouTube channel. There will be, this presentation is recorded. So you'll be able to watch it again and follow up because there'll be contact information for Jaisie too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if there isn't any other questions, I might wrap up. I'll start wrapping up, and if something pops up, I'll keep a watch on. Oh yeah, there's the YouTube link. So we have the YouTube link in the chat, so you can see that. It's
And
yeah, it's with it.
if anybody ever needs anything, my email is right there. So jc.sin@carleton.ca. Happy to answer any questions or like continue rambling about all the exciting stuff we've been doing, or to talk about like collaborations. If you're doing something similar to this with older adults in VR and or thinking about it, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more and also maybe um collect more information and data to go and do more of these types of talks with other people and then share like your experiences as well. So happy to connect, email, LinkedIn. I have other social media connections too. You can probably find it somewhere.
That's great. I know I'll be reaching out.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, JC. Thank you for your time and sharing your learnings of this project. And thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. We encourage you all to attend other events scheduled for Embrace Aging. We have a week left. I think we go till the 31st. So please visit OkanaganEmbraceAging.com for all the remaining events and registration, and you can check out the YouTube videos as well. Those learnings and those for those that were recorded this month. We look forward to growing this event in the Okanagan and encourage anyone interested in supporting Embrace Aging in the future to please contact us. And contact information is available on our website. And also we encourage you to participate by submitting the online evaluation form that will be emailed to you. We welcome everyone's feedback and suggestions for planning Embrace Aging events in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Paula.
Take care.